Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of We Watch Shudder, or welcome for the first time to a new episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who is here with me?
It's Michelle.
It's Michelle, guys. We're here
Ah,
today with our monthly sort of. We started out calling this We Watch Stuff because we were going to just talk about other movies that we watched outside of Shudder. And then it kind of just snowballed into just like talking about all sorts of horror and horror adjacent things and movies and books and video games and cool. Anyway, it's just a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I don't know if you guys have listened. Michelle's just like, man, is he ever going to stop talking? I just want to get this all out of the way. Cause,
we're less than a minute in. It's okay.
If you've noticed on a lot of these, and it's something we've talked about before, my co-host and dear friend Michelle is a voracious consumer of all things horror media, whether it be movies or books or video games or whatever. She watched like 150 movies in October.
Hell yeah, I
Michelle
did.
always watches way, like today I was talking to her and I was like, you got much to talk about? And she's like, nah, not a lot, like 7 maybe 9 movies. That's her idea of. Anyway, long story short, guys, I as much as I would like to, don't get to digest as much content as Michelle does. And I also started a new blog series. If you're not aware of it, it's called JD Watches Tubi. You can find it in the Ghoul blog section of WeWatchShutter.com. Michelle, did you know Tubi has like more than 50 original horror and horror adjacent releases available for free right now?
Whoa, how
I
many did
know,
you
right?
say?
Roughly
More than
50, at least
50?
that I've found so
Wow.
far. Maybe more than 50. It's pretty great.
Wow,
But we've
that
done
is a
several
lot.
weeks on there. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is most of what I have watched this month that I haven't talked about on the show, I've already talked about on that blog. So, all of that to say, welcome to the very first new and improved. How is it both? Because I say so. This is the evolution. This is the Pokemon evolution. We're going up from I don't know if it's called stage 1 to stage 2 or what it's called,
Oh, oh
but
no.
what? What is it
Oh
called,
no, just
Michelle?
well,
What's it
they're just
called?
evolutions. But then I
Okay.
started getting in my head about the different Pokemon. My
Oh,
favorite is definitely Meganium, so we're
Squirtle.
definitely going to Meganium.
I just
Well,
like to
then
say Squirtle.
you'd be a Blastoise because you'd be the
Yeah.
level
Well, no,
3
you would be a
evolution.
Blastoise because, ladies and gentlemen,
Wow.
starting right here, right now, we are upgrading, we are evolving, we watch stuff, a new monthly series that I have dubbed Michelle in Review. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Michelle in Review. I will occasionally have things to talk about, but we are going to make this a monthly platform for Michelle to just kind of go off for a while on. Because, again, I think if it was like 2003 and we were still in that era of people trying to have just the most clever, cool, like internet screen name ever, your screen name should have been like Horrorvore, like carnivore or herbivore, but it
Ooh,
horrorvore. Like
that's a really good one.
you know what, you might actually still be able to pull that one off in 2023.
I
Michelle
see no reason
Horrorvore
not to.
Roller.
I did come up with a really good screen name the other day. I didn't have any reason to have a screen name. It just popped into my head when I was standing in the kitchen. But a shell of my former self because my name's
Oh,
Michelle.
look at
Yeah.
you.
I need to go get some
Look at
MSN
you.
Messenger. I need to set a status.
That's
I need to
beautiful.
go find something
That's
that needs a screen
wonderful.
name.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing, guys. Welcome to the very first edition of Michelle in Review. If we think of a better name, we'll probably use that name. But for right now, it's Michelle in Review. And with that in mind, Michelle, where should we start? Should we start with the films? Is that the right place to start? Do you think it's your Michelle in Review?
Yeah. Let's start with the recent
Have at
horror
it.
category. Okay. I doubt that you have seen these. First one, I think this is the big one, and I know you have heard about it because I told you about it, and I know other people have talked to you about it. Society of the Snow. It is the film about, oh my God, I should have looked up what country and what sports ball team these people play on. I watched it at the beginning of the month and my mind is blank. They crashed in the Andes, God, I should have recapped. It's been a month since I watched it. But essentially, that movie called Alive from 1993 ish, somewhere around there, it is the telling of that story, which was also the telling of a true story. So technically, this movie is a telling of the original true story. It's not a telling of the movie based on the true story. Why would I think that? That's a dumb way to say it. But Society of the Snow, a bunch of people who were friends were in a plane, and then the plane crashed, and they had to eat their dead friends to stay alive. It is harrowing. There is, I mean, this isn't a spoiler. The plane crashes. Uh, it happens pretty quickly because that's the majority of the story is them surviving. And the plane crash scene, I was so caught off guard because I was not expecting it that I immediately paused and went back and watched it again. And then later on, I went back and watched it a third time. It blew my mind because I have never been in a plane crash, but I feel like until I saw this scene, now I'm awakened that all other plane crash scenes are wrong. This is how plane crashes have to be portrayed going forward. It is the one that I went, oh shit, I've never thought of that thing happening during impact and this going that way. And I'm pretty sure there's no music. It feels like it happens in real time of this would happen, then this would happen, then this would happen. And it shocked me. And then the movie continues being shocking and upsetting and so sad, about these people who are just stuck in the mountains eating their friends for survival. The makeup effects are great, so shout out to those people. The acting is of course very great. It's, oh man, you have to check it out if you have not seen it yet. It's Society of the Snow on Netflix.
Yeah, you're not the only one who was saying a lot of good things about it. Our good friend, of course, DC Kevin, was telling me that it was one that he saw, and I don't remember if he was overwhelmingly positive or was just kind of there are things about it that I like. But long and short is, I need as much as oh man, it's Netflix, and I
I
have all sorts
know.
of attitudes about Netflix, but the sad thing is, they do have a bunch of content that I still need to catch up on. That it sucks being a true blood horror believer, right? Because then you have to compromise your principles elsewhere. Anyway, please continue.
So my second movie, gonna go thriller on this one, not horror, but we don't have a separate category for thriller, so horror adjacent. This movie called Cat Person stars Amelia Jones, and she meets a man while she is at the movie theater that she works at, and they exchange numbers. And it is basically her navigating the dating scene and trying to decide if she puts up with things that she doesn't like, and if they're just small things, is this other thing a big red flag? Is this thing a red flag from earlier that I didn't realize until now? So it goes into a lot of those thoughts that people in the dating world have to constantly deal with of what did they mean by this text? Why did they not respond? And then it's explained later of why it was said that way. And then they're like, oh, okay, I get that now. And I overreacted in this way. So it's a lot of that back and forth dialogue, mostly from her perspective. But then there are parts where the man gives his perspective on how things went down, and it's very interesting. I will say I don't want to give up too much, but it's a very nice gray area when it comes to dating for a significant part of this and figuring out what is and is not okay with setting boundaries. So I really enjoyed it. Cat person.
Cat person, not to be confused with cat people or cat woman. Cat
Or
person.
Cats. Cats is streaming on Netflix this month, and I almost forced my husband to watch it a second time.
That's not gonna happen. I thought for a minute you said you were gonna force me to watch it. I was so terrified I didn't even respond to the right thing.
Wait, have you seen it yet?
God, no!
Oh my god, we should watch it. It's the angriest I've ever been at a
Absolutely
movie.
not.
It makes me hate everything. We should
I'm
absolutely
I'm
watch
just
it.
I'm not gonna do that to myself, Michelle.
I feel so passionately about it, and I think we should watch it. I do have Netflix. You can come
Hey,
over, and then you
hey,
don't
hey!
need Netflix.
Yeah, with that in mind, Michelle, do you have any movies to talk about this month that aren't on Netflix?
Well, Cat Person isn't.
Oh,
Cats is. Cat
this
Person
is
was
what
on Hoopla,
this is
I
what I
believe.
get for not paying attention. So
That's
what's number
fair.
3 on your
Why
list?
would
What
you?
else do we got to talk about?
Last thing from modern horror is actually going to be a short. If you were around during Spooktober, you know that I love short films. I love discovering short films. I can get a whole story consumed in 10 minutes. Yes, please. I consume so much media. Give it to me in bite-sized amount. Give me that TikTok horror movie. Don't. I've watched several TikTok horror movies and I've only seen one that was kind of okay. So just don't bother. But there is one that I found on shortedfilms.com, short past tense, shortedfilms.com. That was by Nathan Sellers, and it's called The Watcher from 2022. It is essentially the story of a woman who is part of a traditional cult and who is in the final days of that cult and just going about her business, accomplishing the tasks that she needs to, and having some realizations in the process. It is a nice little, I think it was 9-minute watch. Highly recommended. I do want to see more from Nathan Sellers. And this felt so like a perfect use of that short film format where it gave me exactly what I needed. It perfected every scene, and it was just the epitome of a great short film slash short movie slash short.
What was the
What do we call
title
them?
on that one
Pants?
again?
The Watcher. And I did have to
The
specify
Watcher.
Nathan Sellers because how many fucking movies and shows are there going to be called The Watcher?
Right,
There's
The
so
Watcher
many.
or Watcher or,
Yeah.
The
So,
Watchmen.
yeah. Oh, who watches The Watchmen? Nathan Sellers does with his
Nobody
short film The
anymore.
Watcher.
God, that movie was
True.
anyway. We don't need to talk about that.
Ooh, we'll talk about that some other day.
All right, so Michelle, you said those are really the only new movies that you had to talk about. Then clearly
Yeah.
that means you've got some other things on your mind.
Absolutely. I was going to put Where the Devil Roams on this list, but listeners will have to just stay tuned because we decided to make it a bonus episode this month.
Oh, did you say
So
Where the Devil Roams?
I did indeed.
Yeah, guys, that's my latest post on the JD Watches 2B series on the Ghoul blog. It would be actually really cool if you went and checked out that review. I promise it's completely spoiler free. But yeah, that was a late 2023 release from the Addams family, who also gave us Hellbender a couple years back. Just go read the review. Go watch the movie. We'll be talking about it in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And you can watch it now and then watch it later. It's great.
I've watched it
Uh, on
twice now already, and you guys are going to think that the review I wrote for the blog is just insanely hyperbolic and over, but no, man, this movie, just go read it.
See, this is why it's great that we are turning this into Michelle's recap, monthly recap, whatever it is.
Michelle in review.
Okay, Michelle in review. Because
January Michelle in review.
when we do get to the Where the Devil Roams episode, I will be quiet for the majority of that. So it's probably good that I get my own episode now.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I thought you might have quite a bit to say about that one as well.
You're
Or do you
gonna
just
say
feel
it
like
better
I'm going to
than I
be
will.
overwhelmingly dominant, like, because that's what I do? I'm just an asshole and ramble about the stuff I love and never let you get a word in edgewise.
I wouldn't say you're an asshole, but you are passionate.
And I talk a lot.
Including that movie.
Fair enough. All right, then.
just-
So we're
I
not talking. We're not talking
I-
Where the Devil Roams in detail. What are we talking, Michelle?
Well, I'm so glad you asked.
I'm trying to play Mr. Interviewer here because
I know.
guys,
But-
literally the only thing I watched all month long that wasn't the Tubi movies or the Shudder movies reviewed. Here's what happened. To be totally honest, every bit of free viewing time I have has been devoted to Northern Exposure. I don't know if you heard, but finally, for the first time ever, every single episode of Northern Exposure, the single greatest television series ever created of all times, is available to stream for Amazon Prime members for free. And if you've never seen Northern Exposure, stop this podcast right now. Don't listen to another episode until you've watched every episode of Northern Exposure. Change your fucking life.
Wow.
It's anyway. I guess that's the whole summary of JD in review. So please continue.
You did also watch at least one Studio Ghibli film with your mother.
I wouldn't say I watched it so much as I experienced
on.
it.
Okay.
Ghibli is great, but we don't count times I spend with Mom.
Oh, okay. So the time that you spent with your mother watching Suitable Flesh didn't count. All these people having sex with each other. That's not what your mom sounds like, but that's what anybody.
That's
kind
of what she sounded like. You're not far off.
I don't know if I've ever heard a North Dakotan accent until I heard your mom's North Dakotan accent. I went, wow,
it's the best.
We do have a culture.
Oh, good Lord.
On to mine. I was laughing earlier because I knew what was next on this list, and I had just said, "Oh, you're passionate about things, and I'm passionate about things too." So over the last couple months, I realized that every month I have inadvertently devoted to an entire horror franchise. October was Saw. November was Saw again because my husband had not seen them, so we had to watch all of them a second time. And then December wound up being Final Destination because I got my new TV and I went, what's worthy of my new TV? All 5 Final Destination films within 48 hours. And you know what? I was right. That was the right choice. So then January, a couple days ago, I started thinking to myself, hey, Michelle. And I was like, hey, what's up, Michelle? And then I was like, hey, Michelle. And then that went back and forth for a while because neither of us knew how to continue the conversation. But I did think, wow, we're almost to the end of January. I realized that I watch a horror franchise every month and I haven't done that. That would be a nice little thing to continue. And I talked to our friend Jenna, Jenna who doesn't watch or listen to the does not watch the films before listening to our episode. Jenna, the one whose long name I gave her now just got screwed up. But I talked to her about rewatching all of Halloween, and we're probably going to do that someday when we have a lot of free time in a month. So that's kind of on the agenda. But I was nearing the end of January and somebody sent me something from YouTube. The message accompanying it was watch this as soon as you can, but not around coworkers. And I did. And I felt inspired. That YouTube clip was a man who is on a date. It's a music video, it's animated. It's called Red Flags and is about a man who's on a date and asks his date what her favorite movie is, and she responds Human Centipede. I have very, very passionate feelings about the Human Centipede, so I watched all 3 of them within the last couple days. It was something. It was definitely something. Human Centipede 1, I'm just going to tell you my little rant. Human Centipede 1 is, I would say, like, overhyped for the gross factor. People just go like, yes, they're like,
sure.
They're like, oh, ass to mouth, gross, hate it, blah. It's actually not too gory. It is medical horror, which I love. I am obsessed with anything where somebody drugs you and suddenly you're a fucking walrus like Tusk. That movie gave me such anxiety.
Spoilers for Tusk, by the way.
It's fucking called Tusk.
Well, there's no context, Tusk. Michelle.
Okay, well, that other movie where maybe guy gets turned into a fucking walrus.
We'll put a spoiler alert in there.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere in this episode is a brief spoiler about
Yeah, in
Tusk.
case they're like, man, I want to watch Tusk, the beautiful romantic comedy starring Justin Long.
Directed and written by Kevin Smith.
Yeah, starring Johnny Depp, which is just bizarre. Anyway, not here to talk about walruses, here to talk about centipedes, and I guess caterpillars in the third one.
I would like to say, like, that has always been an interesting thing to me, because you're absolutely right. Like, when Human Centipede first came out, like, everything you heard about it is, this movie is so fucked up, it's so gross, it's so intense. And then I finally watched it, and I was just like, this is like... And I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, but this is like very like horror 101 storytelling, right? Like
Mhm.
stranger in a strange land gets stranded in the middle of nowhere, goes to try and find help and finds the exact opposite of help. That
Yeah.
happens. So like that is like fundamental horror storytelling. And again, like you said, like all of the like everything it's a perfect example really of how everything really intense about it is all happening in the viewer's mind, right? Because from
Mhm.
a graphic perspective, there's very little gore in this. Everything is implied, like you don't actually like there is some grossness that happens, but it's not. At least I had already seen at that point things that were way more severe than Human Centipede, and so I was like, I just found that interesting. And then of course, and this is where I'm going to let you continue. Then we had the Human Centipede 2.
Yes. So Human Centipede 1, I think is called the first sequence. I
First
did just
sequence,
order
yes.
the collector's box set, by the way. So I will
Of
have that
course you
soon.
did.
I
On
really needed to
Blu-ray, I
know,
assume.
of course, but I did need to watch the behind the scenes, specifically of the third one. I'm very excited for that. Human Centipede 1 though, legitimately a very good horror movie. It's not
Yeah, I
very
thought it was all
gory.
right.
Yeah, it's a terrifying concept to me. And I don't want to go into it too much just in case somebody has like not seen it before and now that I'm saying
Oh,
I
so
love it
you'll
so much
give
they're
away
considering
the big throw out the big moment in Tusk, but you won't give away anything about. I see how it is.
Tusk, the movie where a man gets turned into a walrus. If
Yeah.
anybody sees Tusk now and they're surprised by that concept, I have questions. What was it like to be in a cave without any
It's
TV or
just it's
internet?
what's happening right now. If this is maybe a new episode for you or a recent episode, is JD has just a frankly embarrassing record for just throwing spoilers out there for whatever movie he happens to be talking about, and it is
But
rare that I get it.
apparently,
It's
spoiling the
rare that
movie
I
about
get
a
an
man becoming a
opportunity.
walrus.
Right. Well, it's rare I get an opportunity to rag on you about it. So
That's
this
fair.
one's
That's
going the
fair.
distance. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, that's okay. So unlike Tusk, the movie where a man gets turned into a walrus, Human Centipede, terrifying concept for me. And the one woman that they focus the story on, her outcome is so fucking bleak. All of them
Oh
have a
yeah,
very bleak outcome, but hers
yeah.
is obviously the worst. Once you get into it and what winds up happening. And the lead guy, who's I don't remember the actor's name, but he's a Japanese guy. So not only is he stuck in this situation, but he can't communicate with anybody. He is phenomenal,
He's
and he
he's
really, really holds that movie
yeah,
down.
yeah.
He is so, so good. So Human Centipede 1, if you've never seen it because you thought it was the goriest thing ever, it's not. What I couldn't watch was the medical scene, where they're actually performing the surgery. That's where I had to glimpse
And
away. Now I
that's
can
the
do it, but like,
most
ugh.
intense it gets in the entire movie, and even that,
Yep.
like, I get, if
It's
something is
clinical.
particularly not your flavor, like, whatever gets you turning away gets you, right? For me,
Mhm.
that sort of stuff doesn't bother me so much, and so being able to look directly at it, it's not that intense, right?
Yeah,
Like I've
I
seen,
did watch it this time. I feel like I've
yeah,
been more desensitized and
sure.
I was able to watch it. But the first time, oh man, anything involving a tooth, I can't. I have a
Oh,
really hard time with teeth.
yeah, that's
So
rough.
there's a little bit of that going on if you haven't seen it. Yeah, so Human Centipede 1, I will defend till the day I die as a great fucking horror
Yeah,
movie that
I
really gets me. Ugh, gets
I
me so
wouldn't
good.
go I wouldn't go so far as to say I thought it was great myself, but I think what happened to me when I saw it is just it was so hyped in a different to be a
Yeah.
different movie than it was that it was
Yeah.
hard to appreciate it at the time. But I would definitely say it's a solid horror movie for sure. Let's
When I get
finally
my
get
box
you
set,
talking
you can
about
borrow
number
it.
2, which is a
Yes.
disgusting,
Okay.
horrifying nightmare.
Human Centipede 2. So after I got that YouTube video, it did begin a discussion with one of the people who sent it to the friend, and then that friend sent it to me, and then the friend who sent it to that friend messaged me and said, "Did the friend send you the video?" So in a roundabout way, it got us talking. And he made the mistake of asking me if Human Centipede 2 really is that bad. And he got a very long response and then did not respond to me. Jason, I saw him at work the next day. I'm like, "Why didn't you respond to me?" He's like, "I was trying to just slowly back away from that conversation." Human Centipede 2. Now that is my limit. Human Centipede 2, I pride myself on not having a limit when it comes to horror movies. I am very desensitized. I can watch so many things without blinking. I willingly rewatched a Serbian film earlier this year just because I needed to
Oh,
make sure my opinion was the same. Um, and oh my God, Human Centipede 2, there are significant chunks I have a very hard time watching. I will admittedly say there are parts of that movie that I've listened to them. I have looked into the corner of the TV as hard as I can without looking. That is in so many lists of brutal, gory horror for a very good reason. Every single trigger you can think of, and then some you could not comprehend,
oh,
are
sure.
in that movie.
Here's
It
what
is fucked up.
here's what
Oh,
I
it's
love
fucked up.
about that. What I love about how people respond to the gore of it, because there is that reputation. There's a severity of concept, but also a severity of execution, right? Like
Mhm.
but that's so much more interesting when you understand that the entire movie is black and white, right?
Yep.
It manages that, and look, I'm not that like this movie discuss. I would not personally say that I thought this movie was more severe than a Serbian film. I think a Serbian film is
I know.
is
Yep.
is
For
bare
you, it's worse.
bones, without question, the most repulsive thing I've ever seen in my life. This movie is a close second.
Mhm.
This is what I was expecting the first film to be, and
Mhm.
many steps beyond that. I have only seen it one time, and what I found out is that the one time I saw it was the edited version. I have
Oh
never
shit.
seen the full unedited version. I know what happens in it. I know what's different, but I've
Yep.
never actually seen it. I have absolutely no intention of ever seeing it. I was so put off by that movie that I didn't see the third one until last year.
We'll get
And
to the third one in a
oh
minute.
my god, yeah,
Put that
this
one on pause.
movie. Um, I don't know that I would I think what sets this one apart from a Serbian film for me is a Serbian film like this movie is just peak disgusting, just like utterly repulsive, gut wrenching fucking nausea, but it doesn't hit that philosophical, if you will, repugnance that a Serbian film does. There is like this is disgusting concept. A Serbian film is morally, like, humanly repulsive, reprehensible stuff, and I think that's where it gets me. But so for what this is, like it's very effective, but my god, I never want to see that again.
I While I was watching it, now that we've been doing this podcast for so long, I know what your I wouldn't even say triggers, but like the things that if this isn't a movie, like for me, it's an animal dying. Like I will
Guys,
have
if
a bad
if you
time.
do something to babies, I'm gonna be really, really, really upset.
Exactly.
And let me
And
tell you, spoilers: this movie does some shit to a baby. Oh
it
my
does.
god.
But it wasn't even that scene. There is a specific audio dialogue that happens that I watched and I went, "Oh fuck, this alone is why JD hates this movie because the baby scene, if you've seen the movie, you know the baby scene. This other thing I had completely forgotten. I was like, "Oh shit. Yeah, no, JD would not like this." And it happens fairly early on. Yeah, it's fucking gross. I like shock horror, but God, I have such a hard time watching this, and it keeps going. There's a little bit of a story, but it is just trying to be gross, and I don't fault it for that. There are people who are fucked up like me who
Yeah,
want that, but
I
God damn, it's a lot.
yeah, and that's why I say like I keep coming back to it because it's a point of reference, but a Serbian film is so unique to me. Again, because of what it is conceptually. But this, I get what people who make these kind of movies are doing, right? And I'm definitely not one of those people who are like, this should not be allowed to exist. But this is this it takes things to a level that is just finally, and I used to push that, right? Like I watched a lot of Mike in 99, 2000, 2001 when he was in the depths of his repugnance. Like Visitor Q was the second Mike movie I ever saw. Right, he did some savagely disgust. Like I've seen some reprehensible shit, is what I'm trying to tell you. But this just goes to a level that I have no interest in going to. It's like I pushed my limits and I finally found it.
Yeah.
So again, I can't fault it for what it's trying to be, but oh my god,
You don't
it's
enjoy it.
no, and I try not to be judgmental, but I do get real curious about people who do, Michelle.
I wouldn't say I enjoy it, but
No, I get it.
it's definitely an endurance test. And I
Oh,
like the feeling of knowing that I can sit there. Each time I've watched it, I think I've seen it like 3 or 4 times now because it's always been with friends who are like, will you watch this with me? I'm like, I'm like that. What's the thing like the drug guide where somebody does shrooms and you have to sit with them and keep them safe? I'm that with horror movies. What
okay.
is it called? That
It's just
I
a
forgot what.
sitter.
Yeah, a sitter. That's what I am. But for horror movies, being like, okay, there's a really bad part here. You might want to close your eyes just so you know it's going to be very crunchy. I'm that person. So Human Centipede 2, I've seen 3 or 4 times, and I have seen a little bit more of it each time. I can
And I
sit there a
assume you've
little bit
seen
more.
I assume you've seen the unedited version.
I have. I have indeed. It is really interesting because when I watched it for this time, my box set hadn't arrived. I didn't really feel like trying so hard to go find a torrent for the unrated version, so I did watch the edited version this time. And then I pulled up an article to be like, okay, the side by side comparison, what am I missing? And oh shit. I
Yeah,
mean, I this is my limit, and it
that whole
there's so
barbed
much where
wire
just
thing,
reading the side by side is
or
like, yep, they're like 12 more seconds of this in this
the
scene,
sandpaper bit.
15 more seconds. Yep, the sandpaper is completely cut from the edited, which I've seen that one. I think I've seen the director's cut like more. I've definitely seen it so much that I was surprised it wasn't in the edited version at least a little bit. So I don't even know if I'd seen the edited version before, but oh man. Anyway, Human Centipede 2. That's a lot. And then we
Yeah,
get into Human
I
Centipede.
do. I think the
Oh,
last thing I would say about it is having now finally seen the third one, which is also repugnant. The second one is the most intense of the
absolutely.
three because there is a level of absurdity to the third one that kind of tempers a lot of what's going on, I think.
Yeah. So Human Centipede 3. Back when this was getting released, I had read so many interviews from Tom Six, who's writer and director, I believe, on all three of them. And I had read a lot. I was just fascinated by like his thoughts. And he kept saying, like, this is medically accurate. I was like, your first movie kind of shows why it's not 100% medically accurate. Technically, you could do this, but it's not really going to work in the way that, like, long term. So the first movie is a straight up decent horror movie that is it follows like a horror movie structure. It makes sense. It's definitely a unique concept, but I like that. I like body horror shit. So, Human Centipede 1 legit good movie. And then Human Centipede 2 is just trying to take those people who liked the concept of Human Centipede and push it as far as he could. So now it's not just like basic horror movie. Now it's in that extreme shocking territory of just trying to push the limits, and it succeeds. And then Human Centipede 3 is a completely different genre. We're now in three different genres. We've got legit horror, extreme horror, which should not be in the same realm because, like, Human Centipede, I'd watch that with certain friends. Human Centipede 2, I'd asked my husband, I was like, do you want to watch Human Centipede with me? He's very tentatively said yes. And before I put them on, I was like, you know what? I've reconsidered. I don't want you to see these movies. That's how bad these are. Where I was like, I'm not, no. I was like, you won't enjoy this. You're not going to have a good time. You don't have to watch them. But tonight he watched Human Centipede 3 with me because I was like, okay, don't even watch the first two. Just watch 3. And 3 is so fucking silly. It is still gross. There is, there's, it's just ridiculous in like
Yeah,
oh god. I can't even see the best way because I can't tell how much he was trying to make this type of movie. It definitely is very clear that he's leaning into the memes
Oh
and
yeah,
he's
this is
taking the parts that
deliberately
people laughed
absurd
at.
for sure.
Yeah, but God, to what extent? Because it is just a completely different movie. I watched it just a couple hours ago. I finished up and my husband and I laughed throughout the whole fucking thing, which is not the reaction you have to the first two. And not even like there were things that were said that were just so absurd that we were laughing. It was like, wow, that was incredibly racist. What the fuck? It's one of those type of movies where I'm like, what the hell are we watching? I forgot all of this. So Human Centipede 3, completely other level. If I didn't have the first two to go on, I would dislike it, but it makes me laugh in the terrible person type of way.
Yeah, it's obviously there is just more just repugnant gore and grossly sexual stuff in this movie. Also, like, deliberately severe overacting because, of course, the lead
He's so
actor
good.
from the first one and the lead
Dieter.
actor from the second one, Dieter Laser, and
Yeah.
I don't remember the
Ugh.
fella from number two, but they both are back here. It's again, it's
I
in a
really love
way.
Dieter Laser in this
Yeah.
movie. It would have been so boring if not for him. He's just so fucking weird and I love
Oh
it.
yeah, it's just profound overacting, and this I do think it's interesting, and like again, I get what Tom Six is trying to do here, right? And it is an interesting sort of structure of movies that also I think has something to say just about sort of general cycles and progress in horror to begin with. Is you have that first movie that is just in concept so intense that there's a certain kind of person who can't handle it despite the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's not really very graphic or forward. And so they overreact to it, which then drives somebody to do, they're like, oh, you, like, really? Like, this was too much for you? This is nothing. Let me show you how far we can go. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get part two. And then you move into part three where the level of severity has gone so far that now it comes back into just abject absurdity, right? and,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's kind of through that cycle of events, but you have to go to some just repugnant places to do that, and it's not my vibe, bro. I mean, kudos to you for telling your story. It is what it is, but no thank you.
I think the trilogy as a whole is a perfect trilogy because of the fact that they are so fucking different. I
Oh
cannot
yeah.
believe that these were the same guy and these were just made one right after another. This is what he put out. And it's you know what he's pulling? He's pulling a fucking Ari Aster where he's like, you want some different genres? Here you go. But they're all about centipedes. Like
Yeah,
it's just
it's
completely
a set of
different.
movies that like I said, it's well past my limit of what I'm interested in seeing. So why have I bothered to see more than one of them? Fuck, man, I don't know. But it is what it
Curiosity. We
is,
all have that.
right? But so yeah, I certainly respect what the fella was trying to do here, but I'm gonna go watch Halloween again.
My box set does have a colored version of the second one, and it's gonna be hard for me to watch that one because the black and white I think adds something to it, but I already can't watch certain scenes in black and white. I'm hoping that the blood is so absurd that it takes me out of it because like I think that's why black and white was probably the right choice because
Right?
that
Yeah.
discoloration isn't there, and I'm hoping it helps lessen how brutal things are. I'm not watching it right away. I do need a palate cleanser for a while after I watched Human Centipede 1 and 2, I made such a fucking mistake doing that one right after another. I needed a separation between the two. But then I just spent a long time watching Judge Judy, and that did help a little bit before I watched the third one. Because what is the opposite of Human Centipede 2? Judy Justice. Streaming on
My
Prime. The
mom
new
spent
season is
several
out.
hours watching Judy Justice just the other day.
I've seen every episode that's out so far.
You
It's my
and
comfort.
you and my mom should get together and have Judy Justice parties.
Oh my god, yes. Nobody ever wants to talk to me about Judge Judy, and I have so many t-shirts with
Oh,
her
mom
face on them.
loves it. We'll
Oh
we'll
my god,
have.
I will wear my only Judy can judge me shirt and hang out with your mom.
That's
Okay, I
fabulous.
think we're good on the
I don't know
human
how much time
centipede
we
talk.
just spent ad
I
lib
told you I
just
was jinxing it before we
no, just
started
out of
recording. I said
nowhere.
it'll be a quick one.
I don't mind that these things
I
happen.
knew
Like
it.
it's
Yeah.
this. I didn't know we were
Oh
gonna talk
god.
about the human centipede trilogy. I'm gonna start calling trilogies trillies. That's
Trillies. I
that's a
like
new
that.
thing. A human
Yeet.
centipede trilogy. You
Got
know
that
what I
weird.
mean, guys? I may have had some
I like
medicine.
Trilly.
Anyway, what else are we
Trilly's
talking about? I
uh
thought it was a good discussion. I think is what I was trying to
no,
say.
I completely agree. I just think it's funny that every time I say it's gonna be a quick episode, those
It's
are ones that go more than
Michelle.
an
We're
hour.
well beyond the era of when it will ever be a quick episode. Get
I
that through your
don't want to
brain.
regularly put out more than an hour. That's my rule of thumb. But you know what? Fuck it. It's Michelle's recap. Onwards.
No, it's
Uh,
Michelle in review.
Michelle, I'm writing this fucking down. Hang on. Michelle in review, because I will never remember it. Michelle in review.
Some
You're going to make me go
podcasts
figure out
go out
whether a
of their way
preposition
to
is capitalized.
prepare and make sure they're
Yeah.
organized and produce a
Michelle in
professional.
review.
Fuck
Yeah.
that.
Michelle in review.
You
I
just
got it.
show up with a microphone,
Uh,
fam.
So I have 3 films on my older horror list in
Hit
addition
it.
to Human Centipede. These ones, I believe 2 of them you would have had to have seen, but one of these I mentioned to you and you said you had to check it out. And that is Takashi Miike's As the Gods Will. This is the premise immediately at the start, so it's not a spoiler, that suddenly a bunch of high school students are forced to play weird games and they have no idea why it's happening or even what the rules are until people die. And then they go, oh, we can't do that. How about this thing? And then somebody else dies. So it's an elimination kind of Squid Game esque. For some reason, like anime and Japanese movies that take place in high schools, like Persona, love the Persona video games. That kind of thing just hits me. I think it's because it's already such a different culture, but it's something that I can kind of relate to. So this taking place with a bunch of high school students, it's probably my favorite Miike. I think like it's almost undoubtedly my favorite thing that Takashi Miike has done. I really, really enjoyed this. He did direct, not write, but God, I really love this movie. And it's on Crunchyroll if you have
Yeah,
Crunchyroll.
you mentioned this one to me, and what it did that it was interesting for me is it made me start to think a little bit more about what Mike I had seen, and so I went back to look at his filmography, and what I realized is like pretty much the most recent thing of his that I've had seen was Gozu back from like 2003.
Oh, you have
Like
so many to watch.
oh yeah, but like those there's a period from like 99 to 2003 where he just you had Audition and you had Ichi the Killer and you had Gozu and you had The Happiness of the Katakuris. It just this wave of some of the most Visitor Q, which is one of the most fucking gross, disgusting, sick things you'll ever see in your life. Yeah, just and so I'm curious what the last 20 years may or may not have done to temper or sharpen that guy's voice, because he's a sick son of a bitch.
It is a lot of anime now. Like he did several episodes, or maybe just one episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He did the movie that I have not seen yet, but I gotta fucking see it. I just haven't found a place to stream it. Of Ace Attorney, which is based on Ace Attorney, Attorney at Law, whatever the fucking. It's a game. I really enjoy it. Phoenix Wright. I object. Objection. Anyway, I have to see that. That's what I'm trying to get at. So he's got like a lot of weird shit, like anime. And also, As to God's Will, it reminded me how fucking funny he is. He's really, really good at interjecting comedy into horror. It's dark, dark comedy, but that's kind of my favorite part. So I fucking love As the Gods Will. I think you should start with that one as your
All right.
more recent ones to check out because it's my favorite Mike, and
It'll go on
I like
it'll
Mike.
go on the
You got me
ever
hooked.
growing list of shit I still need to see.
Yeah, yeah. I can help you prioritize. I know what's good and bad. Speaking
Do
of
you,
good,
Michelle?
I do.
Do
It's
you?
the first human centipede. Anyway, on the older list, these two are just such classics. And January, I'm gonna be honest, it was a very, very stressful month for me. I love my job. I was very stressed out by my job. That is not a complaint. It's just I needed time outside of work to decompress. So I did go back to some of my favorites to rewatch. And I don't rewatch often. I do like to consume new media as much as new media as possible, but I just need a fucking break. So one of the films that I watched also with my husband, I am slowly introducing him to horror. I'm so proud. He had never seen this, and it is a movie that everybody who likes horror movies has to see. Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Fucking Six Skulls. That movie is
Yes.
genius. It's
Yes.
crazy to me that more people don't know that movie. It is so fucking good.
Yep. I have been building up my physical media collection because during my Christmas break from work, I did go through and catalog everything in my collection. I didn't have it before. It was driving me a little crazy that I kept winding up with copies of things, being like, oh, clearly I don't have this. And I'd get many copies of that, but then not have things like Behind the Mask. So I ordered that on DVD and it arrived and I had to watch it immediately. That, if you're not familiar, which again, very surprising people who haven't heard of this, but it's pretty like it's on my list of rare horror because people just it's not as mainstream and I'm amazed by that, but it is the slasher story told from the perspective of the serial killer, and he's letting them make a documentary as he's showing them how he stalks this girl and prepares for his big night of killing all her friends. It's
Yeah, and but
fantastic.
then it also does, and I don't even really want to explain it in detail, because I think it's a really incredible thing to watch happen. But yeah, it starts off in the form of a mockumentary where this
Yep.
documentary crew is following, like they talk about Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers, like these were real serial killers in the real world, and he's trying to be the next one of those. And then we'll just say the movie starts changing.
It's so beautiful to watch.
And what this movie does is one of the most clever and unique ideas I have ever seen a horror movie do. I've never seen it. It's also the kind of thing that it's so unique that nobody could ever do it again, right?
Mhm.
Without ever just immediately being like, "Oh, you lifted that entirely from this."
Yep.
I love that movie. It's so good.
That is one of my comfort films. Fucking love it. It's also so funny.
We should do a
When I
full episode about that sometime.
I would be down.
Put it on the
Leslie
list for
Vernon,
sure.
the guy from this, when I saw this in high school, I was so hot for Leslie Vernon. Oh my god, he's so charismatic, and I'm like,
The mask
damn
he
boy,
wears
you
in
can
this is
stab me.
wild too.
I
Like
know
I
he just looks
love
so
that mask.
sad. He's so fucking charismatic, and I'm like, damn it, this is not a good thing that I'm into Leslie Vernon. But you know what? He's charming as hell. He's charming as hell. He's a very nice serial killer.
Oh yeah, it's so
But yeah,
great.
Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. If you haven't checked it out, absolutely, just go buy it. Just have it because it's so good. And then my other one, another classic in an entirely different way. I saw this movie for the first time when I was too young to appreciate it, but I still watched it and said, "There's something here that I like." I laughed at certain parts. I did not fucking get it beyond that. So I've rewatched it a couple times as an adult now, and that movie is 1964's Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. It's a great movie, and
It's
I didn't
it's
understand it the first time.
Oh, do you understand it now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I
Could
get
you ex-
generally what's
could you
happening.
explain it to me? I'm not sure I still understand it. Or rather,
So
I'm still not sure I understand it.
a crazy general decides to start the nuclear war by sending a nuke, and then they can't be communicated with, and it's all the people fighting over what to do, and then they're on the phone with Dmitry, who's like head of Russia. Dmitry, I know, I'm so sorry, Dmitry. And the quote, "You can't fight in here, this is the war room," made me laugh so fucking hard. The guy played by Peter Sellers, there's three played by him, but the one who's an ex-Nazi who can't stop like
Spoilers.
that was no, it's from
I'm just fucking
1964.
with you.
Anyway, he can't stop Zig hailing, and I did not get that the first time I saw this in high school. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Is he possessed? I did not understand, and now it's so funny.
Oh,
And I think
I
I
mean,
like that it's never dark. It's just funny and absurd.
it is legendary anti-war satire, right? Like it is.
It's
It's
great.
definitive satirical comedy. I thought it's really really good. It's a legend for a reason. It does
Yep.
make me want to ask: have you ever seen a film called Failsafe?
I don't think I've ever heard of that in the
It's
context of a
it's
movie.
another film from around the same time as Doctor Strangelove. Uh, s-
1964, same year.
yeah, it's a whole lot more serious film, and takes like the whole gimmick of the film is somehow the order gets sent to start a nuclear strike on Russia, but it's not supposed to actually be happening, and they're
Oh, so it's
trying.
the same concept but serious.
Right, and you should see it. It's like the flip
I
side
will.
coin of that movie, and it's also really, really good.
I will absolutely be checking that out because yeah, I've been trying to work my way through more classic films. Gone with the Wind, I mentioned before, it was the most shocking classic movie I've ever seen because oh my god, Scarlett O'Hara is a bitch and you do not like her. I did not expect that. Spoiler.
Interesting thing about Failsafe. I don't remember. I think the original was a theatrical film, but sometime I want to say in the early mid 2000s, George Clooney, I want to say, uh, produced a live television broadcast of a remake of Failsafe. But they did it as a live broadcast that night. It was like a prime time Sunday night thing or whatever. And I don't remember if that was something that I don't think that's how the original film was made. But it was an interesting thing. I watched it live on TV. I still think the
Mhm.
original is better, but it's interesting for sure.
Awesome. Oh man, this month is such a good month for recommendations. I'm even getting a few things. What a great time. Woohoo. Um
Yay!
okay. I have one thing in my non-horror category, and technically Doctor Strangelove could have been non-horror. I think the idea of a nuclear apocalypse and the world ending is horror. It's close enough for me. Even though you're never going to be scared, you're going to be laughing. But non-horror, I just have one thing. It was a very documentary heavy month. Like I said, I needed some comfort things. I needed to learn about the world. And this has been on my list for a little bit. I believe it's on Max, formerly known as HBO Max, if you're old school like me. Um, but I thought I was getting into something else. And then I watched one of the most devastating documentaries that I've seen in a while. So that did not wind up being the palate cleanser that I needed that night. That documentary is called Great Photo, Lovely Life. Are you familiar at all,
I've
JD?
never heard those words together in that series ever before in my life.
Okay, I am going to give you a very, very brief synopsis, trying to keep this as spoiler light as I can, but it establishes within just a few minutes what the topic is going to be. And essentially, it's asking the question if one of your beloved family members turns out to be a fan of sexually assaulting children, how do you deal with that? And it is this family figuring that shit out.
That's a horrible, horrifying question that I'm
Yep.
sure an unfortunate number of people have had to contend with.
Yep, exactly. And this is talking to various family members about what was done to them or what they knew was happening and trying to just rebuild this relationship and people blaming others in the family. I mean, even though it was the actual offender's fault, blaming them and trying to come to terms with what happened. And it is very upsetting, but it was also very compelling. And oh man, it definitely explored a territory that I don't think I've ever seen explored that intimately before. I think it is probably going to be helpful to a lot of people who might be dealing with those same kind of conflicting emotions. So, highly recommended, but go into it prepared for the very upsetting documentary. It's up there with Dear Zachary, which is the
Also
saddest
have not
documentary I've
seen that.
ever seen. Oh my God, it's the most devastating documentary I've seen in my entire goddamn life. I cried so
Yeah,
long.
I've kind
Yeah,
of avoided watching it because I've
it's gonna
heard that
wreck you.
it's pretty bleak. There's that one, and then
Yeah.
it's not a documentary, but we need to talk about Kevin.
I rewatched
I
that this month.
also have not watched because I hear it's just bleak as fuck.
Yeah, it's very bleak. Not as bleak as I remember. I think now I've gotten a lot more desensitized to sad things after we've reviewed, like Speak No Evil. That's way more bleak to me. But I actually happened to rewatch that a couple days ago. Or last week,
Oh yeah,
I think. Yeah, I did.
I still
And you know
haven't
what?
seen it.
They should have talked about him. They should have talked about Kevin with save some people some heartache. But
Oh,
yeah,
I
that's a
thought you
very
meant you
upsetting
just
one.
rewatched Speak No Evil.
Oh, no, no. We should talk about Kevin. I rewatched and they should have just talked about him. That would have solved everything. It's in the title. What were they thinking? Fucking Tilda Swinton. Read the title. Follow the directions next time. You won't be in
It's
the
right there in the
situation.
title of your story, lady. What's gonna come on?
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
what else do you have to
I
talk
have
about, Michelle, in review?
I just have a couple news items that will be very, very quick. First off, Has Been Hotel finally hit streaming services. They released one episode, I think, 4 years ago on YouTube, and we have been waiting for the full season to be released. I watched it aside from the episode that hasn't aired yet, or maybe I think one might have come out very recently. So I'm either one or two episodes behind. It's fucking great. If you love Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which used to be one of my all time favorite shows, I love that animation style, but this is the adult version with demons. And there is a woman who is the daughter of Lucifer and not Eve, Lilith. Lucifer and Lilith, and she starts a hotel in hell because she wants to help rehabilitate people who are stuck in hell so that they can get to heaven. And it is fucking great. It's very funny. I did not expect it to be incredibly musical, but it's very musical and I have had it playing through my head for a while. I love it. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It was my cup of tea. I like it. Pour me some more, please.
All right, I've never even heard of it, but I just Googled it while you were chatting them up there, and
Hmm.
this is a A24 thing. I see.
Not surprised. I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I might have
Uh,
to give that a shot after I've gotten all the way through all 6 seasons of Northern Exposure.
and it's a quick
Michelle,
watch.
have
I
you
think the
ever
full
seen
season.
Northern Exposure?
No, I looked it up after
Oh
you
my
mentioned in
god,
one of the earlier episodes, and I decided no.
it's
I did
so
not. It
fuck.
did not appeal to me.
It's
I had
so
too much
fucking
Judge
good.
Judy to watch, and Has Been Hotel, and Human Centipede.
Oh.
Um, Other quick news: Steamboat Willie. Of course, we're getting so many fucking horror movies. I Brock Baker on YouTube said that he's disappointed that nobody has called it Screamboat Killy, and I agree. That's way better. So they're all Steamboat Willie or like Mickey Kills, I think is one of them. We're getting so many, and I don't like it. But we are getting a Steamboat Willie horror game. I think it's coming from Infestation 88, if I recall where that news was from or who made it. I made a note, then I didn't go back and double check where I saw that. So I'm excited for the video game. I'll take a Steamboat Willie video game, but God, stop giving me childhood icons turned into horror movies. They're not good. Knock it off. Knock it off. Unless you turn them into centipedes. Steamboat Willie as a centipede, I'd watch that.
The
That's
Steamboat
something.
Centipede.
Yeah, mouse centipede. something. Nice little hybrid. And then my other quick piece of news, Sundance Film Festival wrapped up. I have a huge list. I think it was 26 movies. I went through the entire website and I wrote down everything that appealed to me so that I could keep an eye out for when it hits streaming services. The four really big ones are Presence, which is
Oh
essentially,
my
yeah,
God, I
found
can't wait.
footage told from the story of the ghost.
Yeah, so guys, I don't know if you've heard about this movie, but as everybody who's listened to us for a long time knows, JD's real particular about found footage. You really got to do something special and unique, and this is not telling tales out of school. This is just part of their open marketing of the film. Yeah, it's first-person perspective found footage film, but you're watching from the perspective of the evil presence. And like Soderbergh, I don't know, Michelle, have you seen any of Soderbergh's more recent kind of psychological thriller horror stuff? Kimmy, Unsane,
Yes. Yeah, I've seen both
Contagion.
of those.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's been on this. Like I wouldn't say any one of them is strictly a horror film in any way, but they are these very weird. There are actually, especially in Kimmy, his most recent one from a couple of years ago. Which, if you haven't seen that, you absolutely should. It's a phenomenal movie. There are some sequences in that are very reminiscent of horror movie stuff. There's one scene in particular that just, with a little bit of special effects makeup, you could have it straight out of a zombie film. Like it's great stuff. But one of his big things has always been like and I've said this myself also, the biggest problem with found footage is that you don't see the reaction of the people holding the cameras, right? You don't see their faces. They're not on-screen presence. And I thought, the more I think about that, every movie that attaches itself sort of to found footage that I really like does find some way to give you a perspective on the person's face from time to time. And then I heard this
Like
concept.
Deadstream.
Yeah, I heard this concept and I was just like, holy, first of all, how has nobody ever thought to do this before? But I'm so fucking excited for that movie. I haven't
Me
been excited
too.
about a found footage movie maybe ever in my life. I was
Well,
excited
I
about
hope
Blair Witch Project, but we didn't know what a found footage movie was at that time. So,
that's fair. Soderbergh also did The Nick, the TV series, great fucking TV series. He did Logan Lucky, and most importantly, he did Magic Mike and Magic Mike's Last Dance.
oh yeah, he also did like Ocean's 11, 12,
No, I don't
13,
care
all
about
that
that.
stuff.
Show me
He's
Channing
if you
Tatum's
look at
working.
his filmography, he's very famously known for like he goes out because he's buddies with like Clooney and that whole and Brad Pitt and that whole school of guys. So it's like we go out and we do a big high budget motion picture for a big studio with all our movie star friends, and we all make a bunch of money. And then we go off and do one of these small little indie projects that's just like a thing that we really want to dive into. You'll see that in his he kind of alternates back and forth between the big Hollywood projects and the smaller indie stuff. And what he's done over the last, I didn't even really kind of figure it out until Kimmy, and then I went back to look at his filmography. But he's created this very interesting, like, psychological thriller kind of phase of his career, and I have enjoyed all of these movies. Four of them in particular: Contagion, Side Effects, Unsane, and Kimmy. I think have all been really, really good.
You know how we sometimes have award-winning movie ideas that if somebody just gave us money, we would sweep
Oh
all
yeah.
the Oscars? I just came up with a really good one.
Okay,
Okay,
hit
hear
me.
me out. Magic Mike. It's Takashi Miike, but with strippers. Just think about it.
Is this the part where
Yep.
we just say goodnight?
No, I'm not done. Hang on. Okay. Magic Mike, I'm telling you, millions of dollars are just waiting. My next thing, seeking Mavis Beacon at Sundance. Mavis Beacon, her typing, I fucking forgot the game just now, but she had a typing
Mavis
computer game.
Beacon teaches typing.
Yeah, I think that's it.
No, that is what
So-
it is. I'm not.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not suggesting. I'm telling you. It's
Yeah. So Mavis Beacon, Honestly, this woman shaped my life. I fucking love typing. When
She
I got
shaped
my
your life and
Steam,
you don't even remember the name of the software, Michelle?
it's I'm not a smart person when it comes to remembering those types of things, but I remember her, and I fucking love typing. When I got my Steam game, or Steam Games in Review for the year, whatever the fuck that name is, it had a significant percentage spent on typing games. And when I posted on social media, somebody was like, "What the fuck were you playing, Mavis Beacon?" I'm like, essentially, yes. I love Mavis Beacon's games. I love typing. I think it's fun.
I think
So
you might be
seeking
the
Mavis
only
Beacon.
person I've ever heard describe Mavis Beacon teaches typing as a game.
It was one of my favorite games. I loved it. But Seeking Mavis Beacon is about Mavis Beacon, and I've never even considered that that was a real woman. And I'm so
Is this a
excited.
horror movie somehow?
No, this is a documentary. I'm just telling you Sundance things I'm excited about. But
Oh,
God, Seeking Mavis Beacon, this horror movie, would be really fucking good.
I'm only gonna see it if the title actually like drops the G on seeking with an apostrophe, and it's called Seekin' Mavis
Seeking
Beacon.
Mavis Beacon. Oh
If
man.
the name doesn't rhyme, I'm not seeing it.
I feel like the woman who shaped typing for a generation would not allow that.
Well, no, that's why you include the apostrophe.
I
It's
know, but
correct
I feel
grammar.
I feel like she would frown upon it.
Well,
And then this one, just a quick little shout out to a documentary called Every Little Thing, which is about hummingbirds. I fucking love birds. I know too much about birds. I read books that are about birds. And this is about hummingbirds. And I'm gonna cry like a little bitch. I'm so excited for it. It's just a documentary about hummingbirds. And even
please,
just thinking about it, did you
please.
know their bodies are 70% air, and that the pygmy hummingbird is so small that it can sit on a human's fingernail, and it can't be out in the rain because the raindrops will crush its little body? I know so much about hummingbirds. Anyway, and then my last one. This is the one. This is
That
the
was
one
a
I was
moment we
excited to
just
tell
had
you.
with oh no, Michelle, you don't get to just blow by this. So this is a moment we
What?
just had where we all
I
learned
like
something about
birds.
you.
I like
Mich-
birds, okay?
Michelle, you know birds aren't real, right?
If it flies, it spies.
Birds aren't real.
Birds aren't
Anyway,
real. I want one
moving
of those
on.
t-shirts. And then the
Did you ever
last thing
see?
from
Why am
Sundance.
I asking? Did you ever see? Of course you have. You've seen Birdemic, haven't you?
Of course.
Have you seen all of the Birdemics?
I didn't know there was more than one, and
Oh,
I
there's
kind of
like
don't
I
want
think there's
to.
like at least 3, maybe 4, maybe even more than that. You got to
That
do a
sounds awful.
Birdemic month with your
Oh,
franchise thing.
I wrote it down on my paper. It'll happen. I don't know
Coming
when.
soon to a Michelle and
I'll
review
find
near you. The
that would be like a
Birdemic
good spring watch, I
franchise.
think, when the birds are coming out. I watch them from my window in my office, and I love them. And then my last movie, this one I'm excited for this, but I was more excited to tell you about this in case you had not heard of it. I saw the TV Glow. It's been on my radar for a while.
Hmm.
Looks good. I'm excited for it. Most importantly, writer director Jane Schoenbrunn.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that name now. Yes, I'm very excited to see that. If I remember correctly, I think, and God, I feel terrible that I don't remember their name, but I think the star of We're All Going to the World's Fair is also in that film. I may be mistaken, but no, I am definitely looking forward to seeing that film. Of course, longtime listeners will know that We're All Going to the World's Fair was one of my absolute favorite films of 2022. I believe it's still available on HBO Max. I strongly recommend everybody go see it. Michelle didn't like it nearly as much as I did, but oh man, do I love that film.
I did not like it, but I did like what it was trying to do.
Sure,
So I'm excited to see more
that's
from
fair.
them. But yeah, that's World's Fair. Um, and that kind
I
of
see what you did
uh,
there.
that kind of wraps up my news section. Usually I would have a literature, manga, books, reading section, but frankly, I was training for my job all month and I just didn't feel like reading jack shit outside of Reddit threads from the Am I the Asshole subreddit. I like reading about people's personal problems and whether they
Sure.
were assholes in those situations.
I do
I
have.
did play a couple video games. That's
Oh,
about
I
it.
actually, if I can, just quickly before we
Yeah.
go on to the video games, I did. I'm still working my way through it, but so
Oh
far
yeah,
as
you have a book.
horror and horror related literature, finally released on audiobook as read by the author. House of Psychotic Women by I found out that you pronounce her name Kayla. Her name is it's spelled Kier-La. I always thought it was just Kirla, pronouncing it phonetically, but no, apparently it's Kayla. Kayla Janice, who gave us the astoundingly exhaustive folk horror documentary Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched that goes on for like almost 5 hours, and it's just awesome. But this is a book that's well known among like real like horror theorists, and you get into the real sort of academic elements of horror and its interpretation. I'm only about halfway through the book at this point, but it's every bit as wonderful as it's been suggested to me that it would be. It's sort of it's almost like a memoir or a looking back at the author's life as filtered through her fandom with horror films, and specifically the portrayal of women in horror films. Really well written. It's fantastic, and I strongly recommend everybody, if you're real serious about horror, you should check it out. Obviously available still in print, but now also available on audiobook as read by the author. House of Psychotic Women. It has a whole big long subtitle, but I don't remember it at this point. Also, just conveniently enough, that film, the actual like that's House of Psychotic Women is the alternate title of a film that was actually just put up on the archive on Shudder recently, called Blue Eyes of the Broken Doll. Also known as House of Psychotic Women. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it yet, but I'm really excited to get a chance to see that, if it was like, the namesake of this book that she wrote. And she's talked about it in the book already, in part of it that I've been through. But yeah, House of
Awesome.
Psychotic Women. Check it out.
This is great. You should definitely read books on months that I don't. I'm partially through many books. I read a couple chapters of Jurassic Park, read a couple chapters of the Final Girl Support Group, read a couple chapters of Maze Runner, just did not finish anything. So I'm trucking along. It was just I was not in the mood to read. I spent significant chunks of my month reading and I was not doing it anymore. Um, so for video games, I don't really have too much to say. Just I've been replaying Cyberpunk 2077. If you want to talk to me about it, holla. I am 100%ing
Isn't
it for
that
the
that
second
game that
time.
was like the big hyped release for so long, and then it was just trash full of bugs when it finally got released?
Well, you're half
Took
right
like
because
took like 3 years to actually make it playable.
it was ridiculously buggy. It was from the same people who, if I recall, and I just fucking forgot the name, even though I've been seeing it for the last couple weeks. But they did Witcher 3, and that was such a huge, big game. So when this came out, it's one of the few that I played at release, and oh man, it was so buggy. However, not trash. I liked the bug version. I liked when I could be running down a street and all of a sudden a car would explode and killed me. That was an extra level of difficulty that I was not prepared for. There was a mission that I had to save this woman, but every time I got to her, she was already dead, but the game didn't recognize her as dead. So then I had to drag her corpse through the level while she was still giving me the dialogue responses as though she was alive. That's a great fucking twist. And I hope someday I can play the bugged version again. It was so fun. I liked buggy Cyberpunk 2077. It was fun.
Cool.
So
What else do we have to
and
talk
then
about, Michelle, in review?
uh just a quick little shout out to Little Nightmares. It is an actual horror game. For Spookum nights, we sit there and we just watch our friend Brock play horror video games, and we all get scared and scream at him. Little Nightmares is the perfect one to do that. There is a man in that game whose arms are too long. And it's a nice little quick indie game that we were able to finish. I mean, if you sat down and just did it, you could do it in a day. JD's cracking up. The man with the arms.
There's just something about the way you said that it was just like, there's a man in that game whose arms are too long. But just the way you emphasized it, it's like there was so much context in just the way you said that. I was just like, oh, like, are we talking like Freddy Krueger in that dream sequence too long, or just like slightly too long? So you got like that uncanny valley thing going on. Like, clearly an upsetting level of too long.
Yeah, they can get you anywhere. When you're just walking around the library, his arms will reach out through a bookcase and just nab you. And then it's too long. But Little Nightmares, there is a second one that we're actually going to play for Spookum Nights, so I'm excited for that. But if you like horror games, that's a cute little nice dark one, very much in the realm of Limbo. Everybody fucking knows Limbo if you play little dark horror games. So that was my month in review. On top of all that, Judge Judy, accused, guilty, or innocent, the latest season on Hulu. Love that show, obsessed with that show. And then I just worked. I watched so many training videos. Can I put that on the review? I'm trying to get certified for a bunch of stuff. I'm tired.
I would like to quickly point out before we wrap this up that I just sprung this idea of Michelle in review on Michelle literally about a half an hour before we sat down to record tonight. Because genuinely, she's able to see so much more stuff than I am. Because I mean, I got a lot going on. She's got a lot going on too, but she's a crazy multitasker. I'm not convinced she's entirely a human being. But
it's insane.
But it's so funny because the very first thing she said to me is, "Yeah, I'm totally okay with that idea, but I didn't really get to watch a whole lot of stuff. It was kind of a light month, so I don't know how." We are now at 76 minutes, an hour and 16 minutes into this episode. Michelle, I
know, we gotta get those numbers up.
She was so worried, guys. She was so worried. I don't know if we're really going to have much to talk about. Well, we had a lot to talk about. Michelle in review, we're going to do it every month.
Human Centipede.
It was a good chat. It was a good chat.
Oh, I'm not saying it wasn't. Just a lot more Centipede than I expected.
Oh,
there
was
more
very
Centipede in this episode than there was in Human Centipede 3. That is severely lacking.
When you stop and think about it, though, isn't there always more Centipede than you expected? Isn't that kind of the Centipede's whole gimmick? Is you see it and then you're just like, oh, whoa, it just keeps going.
Never seen a centipede and said that when I'm at the zoo, like, oh shit,
there's always
my god, that thing.
I tell you this much, there's always more centipede than there should be.
That is the truest thing I've ever heard.
Centipedes, too much.
Too much
me and centipedes don't
needs
get
a little
along.
bit more scent.
All right, I don't have anything else to talk about. Do you?
Me neither.
Well,
no,
shit.
I actually did my entire list, so I'm good.
Awesome. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Oh, good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShutter.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShutter on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShutter.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShutter.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shutter is a production of Rat Factory Media.